Greetings, my human friends. Greetings, my dear hybrid brothers. This is Rudolf of Germany, the tall white alien. Today I have a very important message for all my DNA enhancement participants which are already in the program, and anybody who is listening to the video and is interested to learn about the basis and origin of the universe, human life and any other life forms live in. For that I have to go a little bit further into detail as usual, but I try to make it as short as possible and bring it in a simplified form, so it can be, at least in parts, understood by a more or less average intelligence person who is willing to think about that, what I have to say. DNA. I would like to speak about the fabric of the universe, which is based on one substance, which I have been speaking of so often, which is mind only, or let's call it, in other terms, emotions. We, the tall white aliens, are working solely with the base form of that what the fabric of the universe is, emotional energy. Without that, there would be no visible world, no illusionary or reality, or anything which could be grasped and distinct each other from any other phenomena. Human emotions form the physical reality. Not only the perception around us, but a reality itself, which means what you think and what you feel and that what is around you is actually built by your emotions. Human DNA isolated, let's say in a container, and the donor, which is you, who has been taken a bodily cell of, is being separated from that one cell, which includes your complete DNA and the blueprint and actually a tiny form of yourself. Can be isolated and separated from you. And when you, let's say, are 100 miles away from that one body cell, which includes your DNA, are exposed to certain emotional stimulations. Let's say you see a movie of violence or a movie of love, or you are being burned by a hot iron or anything at all. Whatever you feel instantaneously is being measured, can be measured, and is being felt in that DNA sequence, which is in that bodily cell about 100 miles away, without any transportation or time lapse at all, which means space and time does not apply to the communication between you, the donor and spender of that one bodily cell, which contains your DNA, and the DNA inside the cell itself. Imagine how many bodily cells you shed every day and during a lifetime, and each one of your bodily cells contains the complete information you as a person contain also. So you can call it your little me is in millions and millions of forms being transported in form of hair, body, skin, particles, saliva, and any other form of yourself, fingernails, etc., throughout the whole world and the universe eventually. If a hair is flushed down the toilet, it will float into some kind of reservoir or river, and even if it is swallowed by a fish, will still contain your total DNA. And with other words, a complete person as such. When you think as the host, as the donor, about something, and it gives an emotional reaction to you, then that reaction also is going to be felt in a cell of that particular hair which has been swallowed by a fish, and the fish is swimming now to a complete different continent. And that not only in one bodily cell, but in millions of cells which will be distributed throughout the world. That means that not only you as the donor of the cell and the DNA babies you are distributing, no, but you yourself are just a cell of a higher being which is made of the same DNA, exactly the same DNA you are made of. And this is whatever you see in the mirror, but only in a much vaster and bigger form. You can call it your personal God. Whatever this God is thinking and feeling, you as a bodily cell of him feel and think also. And then you are, as a bodily cell, since space and time does not mean anything and sizes themselves are also illusionary, shed another cell which is alive in its own right, and you are basically the donor and the God of this cell. And so it goes on, and the little cell you have shedded again will shed cells, and there is the whole DNA of you in it. This way you can say, as the Bible even said, God created man in his image. That is the meaning of it. There is a donor containing DNA, shedding DNA which is conscious, and this small DNA cell sheds DNA again in form of a cell, and on, endlessly it goes. This way you are creating your own dimensional universe. You're living in your own universe, which is created by your own God, and this God is being created by his God. It's an endless line of existence, and only interrupted by emotional changes which come by all these billions of other life forms and humans who intermingle and interfere with you. This way you create a certain change in structure which create parallel universes which are just slightly different than the original one thought out by your host and donor God, which is yourself in a bigger form. It is not easy to be understood, but every single human lives in his own universe, and the light photons of which are basically a form of which form the reality are being influenced by your own DNA, because photons which are being introduced to DNA change accordingly. And the world around you is of your own making, and you live in your own personal dimension and cannot escape it, as all the other billions and billions of life forms also live in their own dimensions, but only by contact to other beings and DNA forms and cells may they be large or small, because large and small, space and form don't exist in reality. Just by interaction with each other, slight different dimensions are formed. This way, you have variations, and the dimensions, these endless dimensions I've been speaking so much of, are coming into existence. But you never ever will be able to escape your own DNA universal dimension. Your feelings are creating the world you live in. And not only the world you imagine, but the world which the light photons are consisting of. The reality itself is being formed by your emotional energy, which take a direct influence on all the DNA material which are surrounding this universe, which is made of your own mind. What did we learn today? Well, the DNA influences the surroundings directly, and the reality you live in is made by your own emotions. And whatever you represent is the total reality of the God which you are only a particle of, but this God is created also of a larger being, and a larger being again, and a larger being again of your very own DNA. And any other life form has also its own individual DNA and its own host and donor God. You may call it God if you would like to use this word. And so all these individual dimensions exist and intermingle, and this way create new worlds. That is also the reason we, the tall white aliens, are harvesting energies of living creatures, also of human beings, because we need these emotions for our own DNA sequence to be able to create our own realities, which then again take an influence on the realities of every single one of you. This all is a bit complicated, I understand, in a few minutes' time, not to be explained in detail, of course. But particularly for my DNA enhancement members and participants, this should be a reminder that the influence I take on the DNA of every single individual of you will have a certain impact on the reality you are going to experience. Rudolf of Germany.